So what will the big stories be of 2017? You might recognize tonight's panelists, Dwayne Lindo and Kate Fletcher. Thanks for being here, both of you.
Thank you.
We're walking the 30 yards over here. Biggest story you expect in 2017, Kate, we'll start with you.
Well, I put that package together, so I definitely think that the presidential election will be the top story. The president-elect, Donald Trump, taking office. It was the biggest story of 2016. I think it will continue into 2017.
Certainly a lot of promises were made, and we'll have to see if they're all executed or not. Dwayne, you're a huge presidential scholar. You really are. All the guys I know, you know trivia and presidents quite a bit. So
pretty much.
What are your thoughts about the transition, without giving too many opinions here in the new year?
Well, talking about Donald Trump, obviously offshore drilling is something that Donald Trump is in favor of. Senator Bill Nelson, not a big fan of offshore drilling. He basically wants offshore drilling not to happen off our Florida Gulf Coast because it would, according to Senator Bill Nelson, not be good for tourism and just the ecosystem in general. But with Trump in office, that may change next year. Who knows?
Now, Kate, one of your other big issues is the gun bill that's been proposed in Florida. Why does that intrigue you, and why do you think we'll see more about that next year?
Well, I think it's something that really intrigued viewers. We posted it to the web. It got huge play on the web. And I think it's because it is such a contentious issue. Of course, there are people on both sides of it. The Second Amendment tends to be contentious. But I definitely think that it's something that we're going to see as a hot-button issue coming up in 2017.
And for those who aren't familiar with the specific issue, what is the latest proposal, oftentimes proposed by our own representative and State Senator Greg Steube?
Well, in the past, Steube has kind of put forth several different bills, and in this situation, he's kind of has this all-encompassing bill where he would allow open carry as well as in certain locations, schools, college campuses, things like that.
Back in this area, there's a new medical center in Newtown coming up in 2017, a very important facility, I would think.
Yeah, unprecedented for the community of Newtown. This medical center will open up next year of July. I've talked to residents in Newtown. Jetson Grimes, he's owned a business in Newtown for numerous years, over 2 decades. He's happy and excited. Many of the community members are happy and excited about this particular medical center. Reason being is because they can have their own doctor. They can visit their own doctor right in their own neighborhood. They don't have to go 2 or 3 or 4 miles away to Sarasota Memorial or Doctors Hospital to visit a doctor. So again, great for the community of Newtown.
And it's an important distinction. This is not an emergency walk-in clinic. That was reported early on by some sources. Very different, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, it is. You have doctors there that will treat some of the community members, or a lot of the community members, just different things they have, ailments, that type of thing. So again, not an emergency room type deal, but it will be very beneficial for the residents of Newtown.
Speaking of Newtown in 2017, Dwayne, I'll stay on this topic. Ringling College, of course, doing lots of things along Martin Luther King. Not everyone is in favor of that, I understand.
Well, yeah, you have some folks that, you know, it's almost like you have, there's a library for Ringling and New College that's going to be opening up right on MLK, that corridor. But you have folks that think that they're encroaching into the neighborhood, so to speak. So there's a lot of folks that are pretty indifferent about it, but there's folks out there that they're not happy about it at all.
Some want to see the activity and the jobs, and others think just leave this area alone. We're fine the way it is.
Right, it goes both ways.
All right, very good. Many more issues still to cover. We'll come back and discuss some of those that you'll see in 2017, and also the forecast after this break. Stay with us. Tonight, look at some of the stories in 2017 that should be making news on the Sun Coast and beyond. Our panelists, Dwayne Lindo and Kate Fletcher, straight from the newsroom. Thanks both for being here. In 2017, January, a jail diversion program begins in Sarasota County. Tell us more about that.
Well, I think that it's the first of its kind in the state, and I think it really signifies a change in the way people are kind of viewing the issues of homelessness and addiction. Obviously, those are 2 issues that have really plagued the Sun Coast, and I think this kind of symbolizes that larger shift in mentality.
This is Judge Erica Quartermain, and she's the pilot of this, and the idea is to keep the inmate population lower if we can do it with this jail diversion program.
Right, and she's been upstarting this program. She's been doing it for 2 years. So this is something that's not just something she just started right off the bat. She's been trying to put this together for 2 years. Finally, it'll come to fruition starting next year.
Because it's a huge issue here. There are some, sadly, some trends here between the homeless and heroin. You wouldn't think a beautiful slice of paradise like the Suncoast would have such a heroin issue, but Manatee County has some of the highest numbers in the state, Kate.
Yes, and it's really changing the game right now because they've seen a lot more synthetic forms of fentanyl, like carfentanil, and that they're finding that Narcan, which usually revives people from heroin overdoses, isn't working in those cases of synthetic fentanyl. So I think it really is changing and kind of intensifying the fight against heroin.
You also have covered many of the homeless issues.
Yes.
Of course, in 2016, the city of Sarasota had a homeless coordinator who stepped down. That's a show in itself. And there really is not a lot of communication between the city and county involving the homeless issue in Sarasota. You've covered this issue along the way. Any comments about what you might expect to see happen in 2017?
Well, look, it's been a long-standing issue with the county and the city really not communicating with each other, as you just said. But in 2017, I've talked to the city manager, Tom Barwin. I've talked to folks over at the county. They've assured me, to tell folks, listen, this is something that's a priority in the city, not only the city, but the county of Sarasota. So at least I think there should be a few things at least done or even looked at in 2017.
All right, also big in 2017, of course, construction all around Sarasota. In the Rosemary District, we see that all the time. Every time you turn around, there's a new building in the Rosemary District, and also hotels. We did a story a couple days ago about how in Sarasota they've got another 1,000 hotel rooms on the way right now, an increase of 1/3, which is way more than most cities can usually absorb. Perhaps we were underserved for a while.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest conflicts kind of facing the city and the county is just kind of striking that balance and maintaining a lot of what people really enjoy here while continuing that growth, and that goes hand in hand with economic growth, of course. So I think that is kind of one of the biggest conflicts and probably one of the biggest conflicts that we're going to see moving forward.
The growth versus controlling growth conflict?
Yes.
It's an age-old issue, of course. Any comments on this development and construction issue?
Well, it just goes to show you that Sarasota County, the city of Sarasota, is a tourism town, and it seems to have more and more tourists coming from abroad, coming from all over the country, and it shows with all the construction that you see going on downtown and in the Rosemary District, as you just mentioned.
When I first started covering Sarasota in 2004, one of the big issues was at Stickney Point Road and US 41. There was a gas station there, and there was a bit of a trailer park behind, and there was a development plan for there, and residents all had to move out. They were bought out to make room for this development. Then the recession hit, and as you see, nothing has happened at that corner. Along comes Benderson and a project called Siesta Promenade, and that now is something you have covered recently, and that'll be big in 2017 as well.
Yeah, I think that it'll be interesting to see how that balance is struck. And I also want to mention the Bayfront 2020 project. I know that the Quay was just approved, but they're talking about how to really develop or maybe not develop that Bayfront area. I think that will be something that we'll see discussed.
It certainly is prime real estate. If you're not familiar, it's the area around the Van Wezel near the Hyatt and then coming out to 41, a couple dozen acres there. And a citizens group called Bayfront 2020 is trying to develop that. They've had meetings for years about it, and now Michael Klauber, the co-chair of the committee, says he promises that by the end of 2017 there will be some activity moving forward, even if he has to plant his own tree in the corner.
Right. If you lived here in the mid-'80s, early '90s, mid-'90s, you know there was a lot going on with the Quay there. I mean, there were restaurants, clubs, bars. So the folks who've been here, like Michael Klauber, want to see that again and want to see money or revenue coming into the city of Sarasota.
Yeah, indeed. In 2017, we'll see more of the Quay. I think before you might have moved to this area, there was a large salmon-colored building we called the Quay.
Correct.
That began to head downhill in the mid-'90s and finally knocked down about 10 years ago.
Right.
And now the new version of the Quay will look nothing like the previous one. This is almost a dozen blocks, and it'll be rolled out in various stages. A $1 billion project. But it's been a long time in coming, because when that Quay was knocked down 10 years ago, It was thought that the new project would start the next day. Again, the recession hit, and here we are now. It's been a big field for 10 years, a very
Correct.
important piece of land there.
Yeah.
I think some people too are kind of concerned about overbuilding and getting to that point that you mentioned right when the recession hit, where we had more space than we knew what to do with. I think that's one of the concerns for people as well.
There's that group called STOP, which is concerned about projects like the View there in front of the Ritz that is kind of blocks the view for some. It's right there flush on the sidewalk. So there's also a discussion, we'll see a lot more in 2017, about how projects should be located, how close to the sidewalk. Andre Duaney is an urbanist who suggested that Sarasota be more cutting edge with projects like that, but not everyone in Sarasota likes to see projects in their face like that.
Another thing is I spoke to City Commissioner Susan Chapman today, and she mentioned, again, with that Bayfront 2020 project, I said, was asking about development. She said not necessarily development, perhaps leaving some of that space open, kind of building that into the city and really being smart about the way that they go about it.
We'd be remiss not to follow up on Susan Chapman in 2017 because we might find out in the next few weeks or few months if she'll be successful in getting legal fees back toward taxpayers. She was involved in a Sunshine lawsuit where $360,000 were spent of tax dollars to win the suit. The other side, the Citizens for Sunshine, is appealing, but the taxpayers want to know if we're going to ever see that money again. Indeed, a big issue as the election nears in March, featuring her seat.
Right, and I covered some of that trial, and the Citizens for Sunshine, they were sure that she basically broke sunshine laws. Well, Susan Chapman won that case. She proved apparently that she didn't break any laws, but who knows? I mean, it could go both ways. I thought, but well, neither here nor there.
We'll find out certainly in 2017 about that, and a big issue that we'll be following in the weeks and months to come. Some final thoughts and the forecast after this break. We're talking big stories in 2017. Our guests tonight are straight from the newsroom, Duane Lindo and Kate Fletcher. Thanks for being here. And Duane, high school football will see some changes in 2017. Tell us about that.
Right. The Florida High School Athletic Association, they're implementing a new change where it's going to be based on points making it to the playoffs. So there are going to be 32 teams from each class to make it into the playoffs. 4 of those teams will be wild card teams. So these teams will get into the playoffs by the point system based on strength of schedule. So basically, if you play Category 1 team, Category 1 meaning the team is ranked in the top 25 of the state. So if you beat a Category 1 team, basically you get 50 points. Category 2 team, which is the top 50 of the state, or the next 25% of the state, you get 45 points, and Category 3 and then Category 4. So there's the Florida High School Athletic Association has put together 4 categories. So basically, teams like Palmetto, it rewards teams that play a strong schedule. So teams like Palmetto that were in the same district as Venice High School and Braden River High School, basically Palmetto, remember, Palmetto didn't make it to the playoffs last season. In this new system, Palmetto would make it to the playoffs because their strength of schedule would be pretty good. So this is something that's good for the state of Florida. It's something that a lot of coaches, a lot of parents, as well as a lot of players really like.
Something else good for the Suncoast is the rebirth of the Colony, and that's a big issue that we might see more of in 2017, Kate.
Yeah, well, Ray, the Colony was a real icon, I think, on Longboat Key for a long time. It's sat 6 years, and nature's really run its course on that area. And so they're hoping to bring in this 5-star hotel, still waiting on the approval, though, from Longboat Key residents.
Yeah, the Colony was ranked #1 nationwide best tennis club in the country for several years in a row.
Right, remember that.
Nobody here thought years later, a few years later, it will be gone, and it's an awful thing to drive by and see. And now a tug of war is underway, and hopefully that'll be played out. I think they're hoping to have something done by 2020, but we'll have to wait and see. It's also a magical year for the City of Sarasota's lift station project. They promised to have that done by that year as well, so fingers crossed, as well as Bayfront 2020 as well. Thank you both for being here tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
I'll help you pay for your ride home.
Yes, please.